I grew.
Welcome to the Know Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Vipul Basania, and today's guest is Omar Elattar. Omar is the host of the Passionate Few podcast, where he's interviewed some of the biggest names in the game: Mylett, Grant and Elena Cardone, Caleb Maddox, you name it, he's been there already. 2 years ago, Omar went through a life-changing experience that left him provoking, looking for more answers to make a better life for himself. Not only did he come from a middle-class background, but he went from a breakup to billion-dollar interviews. So Omar, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom.
I appreciate that, man. I love the intro. It means a lot. And it's funny to have been on that side of the fence and hear kind words like that. So I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
No, it's always exciting for me to have someone who's made that transition from humble beginnings all the way to where they are now. And, you know, you're only moving forward. And so I like to keep track of people who are constantly on their path of growth, regardless of where you are. It seems like you found your place in terms of what your life's work is. And so the first thing that I really wanted to get into is that I heard you say, I think on one of your Instagram stories, actually, that life works for me, not to me, or life happens for me, not to me. So I wondered, what is it that makes you resonate with that philosophy so much?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the concept of life happens for me, not to me. Now, a lot of people might think that sounds overly simplistic or overly positive thinky or, you know, pseudoscience or whatever. I'm of the philosophy that who cares if it's placebo if it works, right? So if shit's going to happen in your life, it's okay if I curse on your podcast?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So if shit's going to happen, you might as well find an empowering way to look at it instead of poor me, woe is me, oh shit, oh fuck, oh man, right? Instead of getting into that spiral, what if you deluded yourself into thinking, well, what's good about this? What's the blessing here? How could I use this as motivation? How could I use the breakdown as a firepower to break through even harder? You know, how can I use the overwhelm of my competition to dominate them down the road, right? How can I convert that pain into power? And really, the concept of life happens for me, not to me, was born out of that, realizing that so much negativity or my perception of negativity was happening to me. And it was like anybody listening to this might be able to relate. You know, it feels like a heavy weight that you can't get out of. But once I started shifting how I looked at it, instead of saying, you know, for example, the breakup, instead of going like, oh man, this girl broke up with me, it devastated me, I feel like crap, who's going to want to be with me, right? Negative self-esteem issues, and that spills into work and life and income. I said, well, what's good about this breakup? Like, what's the blessing here? What's the opportunity? And here we are down the road, having built like $1 billion network, a phenomenal 6-figure business that's scaling to 7 figures, an unbelievable amount of people who've been touched by the stories of the people I interview, people reaching out to me to get my story, all because of a breakup. So see how that one way of how I handled a breakup has now put us on this podcast together, reaching people to help them in their challenges versus me, saying, oh man, that happened to me, and being crawled up in my room depressed crying. Right. No, so it was really born out of that.
Exactly. No, I think it always takes, I think this is something else that you also mentioned. It always takes a heavy weight or a burden, so to speak, to happen in your life for you to then be in the position to find the self-development or personal development world. And I think you were saying that Tony Robbins was the turning point for you. So what I want to know is, how did you first come across him? Was it literally you typing your problem into the internet and you saw motivational? What did that look like?
Yeah, man. So Tony Robbins changed my life, and I have probably consumed, and I say this honestly, more Tony Robbins content than anybody currently alive, and I say that quite literally, not exaggeratively, because there was several years, man, where I went deep into that material, but I discovered Tony. I think it was 2-part, right? So the one part, my first intro to personal development was, I was 13, 14 years old, and my uncle, he had built a multi-million-dollar business, and he was sort of the black sheep of the family. And while everybody else was listening to music and eating tacos and drinking beer and having fun and listening to music and stuff, he was always in the corner, reading a book or reading a newspaper or a newsletter or working on business stuff. And I always have been kind of a little bit on the loner side. And so I kind of resonated with him. And so he planted the seed in me in 13, 14 when he gave me a book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. So that sort of planted the seed. Now, of course, at the time I was 13, 14, all I cared about was, you know, going skating with my friends and sleepovers and staying up and like, you know, whatever, having fun. But it did plant the seed for me to be open-minded to personal development. I think a lot of people have never had their mind open to it. And so they just kind of like, oh, that's motivation crap. So that's the first part. The second part of how I actually found Tony was on YouTube, just searching problems, how to get over a breakup, how to get rich, how to, you know, stuff like that. And I kept, you know, you try out all these different people and I keep seeing Tony. And the more I listen, the more it's just effortless. You know, I started literally memorizing the material, and little by little, the dialogue in my mind started to sound exactly like Tony's, right? Nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that I give it. Success without fulfillment is failure. The people that succeed in life are the people that use pain and pleasure to their advantage instead of having pain use them. And these philosophies just start, you know, life has more to do with how I respond to what happens than versus what actually happens. And so these little by little, all these little psychologies started to add up in my mind. And they started leaking out in little ways. And once I saw the results of that, I just started doing it more and more and more and more. And, you know, it just built this momentum that I just became in love with personal development. And it allowed me to figure out a way to turn all my pain into power instead of my pain being a weight. It was now fuel. So that's kind of how I discovered it and how it started helping me at that time.
That's awesome, because I think a lot of people end up finding personal development that way. Is because they're looking for answers to clear up a problem in their life. And then you become hooked because you think, actually, this guy's making sense or this woman's making sense. And you want to dive deeper and deeper and deeper. So it's cool to see how that shifted your perspective. Now, what I'm interested in knowing is, obviously you've consumed all of that content and you probably still do today from various other sources. Is there anything you're battling with today, mentally or physically, that you still feel like I need to like figure this out?
Absolutely. And anybody that tells you they aren't is lying. You know, everybody deals with challenges at every level. I have many of my own, people at the highest levels, even people that I've interviewed, even people, presidents of countries. I mean, regardless of, you know, in certain contexts, religiously, whatever, you know, spiritual faith you listen to or your listeners adhere to, if they adhere to one, even prophets had their own challenges and issues and things they were working, you know, so we're all in this together of trying to figure it out. But I would say as of late, the challenges are more so with interpersonal relationships, right? Sort of figuring out, for example, when you're building a team or maybe a relationship, when it comes to thinking about your future, who you want to be with, right? Those end up being the new challenges instead of, you know, things of the past like money or, the breakup situation, or just, you know, as you evolve through life, as you get bigger, so do your problems, you know, so they scale. So I would say as of current, the biggest challenges I'm dealing with are figuring out how to scale, right? That's a beast in business. It's one thing to do well. It's another thing to build a team, to create something that's win-win for everybody. So I would say that's the biggest opportunity / challenge, if you will, as of late, you know?
Yeah, I guess this, as they say, every level has a new devil, right? So like wherever you go, as you're leveling up, you're just going to have to smash through different levels of walls. So
right. And I wanted to add to your point about the breakdowns or the tough times. That ends up being, in retrospect, if you ask some of the wisest people in your life, or for anybody listening, you know, think about the wise people in your life. Chances are a lot of that wisdom was born out of pain, was born from those nights where they couldn't sleep, or they were broke, or, you know, say they were in real estate and they couldn't get deals, or they had a rough time, or say they, you know, in any industry, the industry dies, or maybe they have a brick and mortar shop and online took them over, or whatever it is. It's in those times of challenges that you have to dig deep and get in your own mind and think, oh man, how am I going to grow from this? How am I going to, same way in the gym, you know, you tear a muscle to build it. Sometimes you're going to have to tear some intellectual muscles in your life. So I agree with you tremendously on that point.
Exactly.
I break down before the breakthrough.
You're right. And I look at recently what I've been doing over the last year or so is finding a lot of metaphors and comparisons in nature. Like it's all around us if we want to see it. As you're saying, you know, whatever you look at, it's the meaning you give it. So a seed, for it to grow, it's got the plant in it, but it needs to be covered in dirt. It needs to be dug down with dirt first.
And the right dirt. And the right soil. That's
Yeah,
right.
and nurtured over time, and then it becomes what it's supposed to be. You know, and most of us have that seed inside of us, but not that many of us take the time to nurture it long enough. And I think for you, you've been doing that for just about 2 years now, right? For the direction of the path you're taking.
I would say a little bit before that, but it started heavily when the podcast started 2 years ago. And the podcast really became the epicenter of the momentum that we built. But yeah, I would say 2 years ago is when things got really, really serious with it and just started. I was blown away, man. I remember when I first started doing interviews, I didn't even think they were very good. But I remember thinking like, well, I can't even believe one person listened to it. And then it went like one person, that turned to like 100, and then like 1,000, and then 10,000, and 100,000, and then 1,000,000, and then now it's over 2,000,000. And I still can't even believe that anybody listens. It blows me away, man. I never would have thought that would have happened. I just loved to do it, and I think I just loved it so much that that energy was contagious, I guess.
Exactly. No, and this is the other thing that you said is if I wouldn't do it for free, I wouldn't do it for a fee, and that blew me away. As simple as it is,
that's right. Yeah, if I wouldn't do it for free, I wouldn't do it for a fee. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. So just take us back then, paint the picture of, so this breakup happens, like you get off the phone or text, whatever it is, a short conversation from what I understand. Yeah. Where does the passionate few come into that? What does that transition look like?
Yeah, so actually it was interesting. I was, so that breakup, man, it's funny. That breakup made me a lot of money. So it's funny. I was getting out of the gym. I work out at this gym called Equinox, and they have these stairs in front. And I was walking out, and she calls me, and I remember like the relationship was good, everything was great, and my heart's like beating fast, like for no reason, right? So I think some part of me sensed that there was something really, the anxiety in your stomach when you find out something scary or nerve-wracking, right? And so you're like, ah. And so I answer the phone, and she's like crying and whatever. So we're talking right there, and it felt like 10 minutes, but we were probably on the phone 2 hours. Like, I don't even know what. And she was going through stuff, and she just wanted the relationship to be over and didn't want to talk about it. And of course, in my mind, I'm like, how could somebody emotionally disattach like that? There's got to be somebody else, right? Like, you know how it is, right? We all, when we don't get answers from somebody, a significant other, we start imagining all the worst case scenarios. So that was it, man. Cold and dry. Just hung up the phone, and I was devastated, man. So there I was sitting on the stairs, tears in my eyes, not knowing what the hell to do with my life, already feeling kind of crappy. At that time, I was working at Tesla, making great money. Top sales rep there, is doing well, but still, I mean, relative to what my perception of money has astronomically changed since then. But at that time, yeah, man, I was really looking for answers and really hurt, and I didn't eat. Like, I couldn't. It's funny in retrospect to say all this, but like, I was devastated, man. I was like super. Me and this girl were talking about like marriage, and you know what I mean. It was my first relationship where I was like really serious, and everything was going so well, and yeah, man. Just from that moment on, I remember driving home, and for 2-3 days, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't. I just kept thinking about her. I kept checking her Instagram, to Facebook, and it's just a cycle of just feeling like shit. And I literally remember I went to a Starbucks, and I was like crying, and I was like by myself, and I remember like I was just sitting there, and I heard this line from Tony that just hit me. It was like, nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning that you give it. And so if you give something that is painful power, right? It's like gasoline, right? Like, you're driving the car. Situations in life are like gasoline. You get to choose if you put the car in reverse and go backwards, or if you put it in drive and go forwards. But the gas is purely gas. It's neutral. The energy is neutral, and I control what I do with that energy. People can use being pissed off as motivation to smash it. And so just in that moment, man, I got sick of being sick. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I was sitting there in Starbucks, tears in my eyes, and I just wrote out this fucking crazy plan. I'm not gonna lie, I might have even this is the first time I say this on your podcast, man. I might have been a little intoxicated, a little inebriated, and I just wrote down like, you know what, I'm gonna use this. And at the time, it was a little bit spiteful. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, you know what, like, I'm just gonna go on a mad tear, and like, I'm just gonna interview crazy people, like legends, and like, I'm gonna show her like Like she didn't want to be with me. Well, fucking look who does want to be with me, you know? And it was, I know it sounds so egotistical and cynical now, and my motivation has since matured, right? But at that time, it was really just that. It was really just, I'm going to prove a point to her. And so, man, I hope she never hears this, but it's funny. She was big on sales. She worked in sales. And so I remember she would always have Grant Cardone books and programs. I made it a point to interview Grant Cardone. Her favorite snack was hot Cheetos. So I made it a point to interview the creator of hot Cheetos. She, you know, after she would work out, she loved Quest bars. So I interviewed the founder of Quest bars. And so it goes on. And so when I wrote these names down, I wasn't writing it like, oh, I want to start a podcast and interview people and make money and be a digital marketer. It was never that. It was really just like, she doesn't want to be with me. Well, I'm going to go prove to her that everybody she's influenced by wants my time, and I'm going to inspire the world in the process. And so, although it was a little bit of a twisted motivation, it seemed to have so much firepower that it worked.
Wow. Yeah, crazy, right? I did not. Yeah, that is crazy. I did not know that's the way that you chose those guests. That's a crazy story right there. But it just shows that, you know, as you said, it just depends on how you want to use that gasoline. It's up to you. And it turned out to be a positive thing. You know, you weren't planning to create violence or intoxicate yourself further. It was simply to just, you know, prove a point, but in a positive way. You still wanted to have an impact by people. So from then, so you're in that state.
And I've never shared that before, by the way. I've never shared.
I know you haven't, because I've listened to your, I've listened to your podcast and your sort of your recent IGTV videos, and I know that's why I was surprised when you said that. So, but I'm glad you shared it, because I think the more you tell your story, the more power it gives other people, because then they see more of what's going on in your life and can think, well, if he can do that and he's feeling that way and he wasn't in the best place, then where does that leave me? I can do the same thing. I have a head, I have hands, I have a brain just like him, so I can go and do the same thing.
That's right. I'm made of the same skin. I have the same brain. And for anybody listening, I want to encourage you, if you're thinking like, oh, does that relate to me? Yes, it does. Yes, you, the person that's listening to this or watching this, yes, it absolutely relates to you. There's tremendous power inside of you that if you'll just have the courage to manipulate your emotions to serve you instead of jail you, it is unbelievable what you can do. And I promise you, anybody that you look at and think, man, that's so cool, I wish I could do that, I promise you there's inklings of what you're going through that they turn around into their power. So you can do it too. And I want to speak to the core people, but if you're listening to this, you absolutely can turn your pain into your greatest power.
Of course, no, most definitely. It just takes a bit of self-reflection and some push from your own self to want to actually go out and do it. So
that's right. And a willingness to not just to override your reactions. I call it the power of overriding your reactions. A willingness to, like, you know, sit with it. So for example, just to get really tactical, and I think this will be a lot of value, and I don't mean to interject, but I think it's important, is whenever the emotions came up for me of like, oh man, she left me, or oh, this, I would say like, you know, I would get negative and I would say, well, what's good about this? Or like, what if I could look at, what if I could solve this problem so that I can help other people? Like, what if I became an example of how I can help other people with their breakups? Right? Or like, say whatever your challenge is, say you're broke. Man, how could I turn my broke situation into making money and helping other broke people a year from now? Right? Like, and when you start taking on an internal meaning like that, just start auditioning ideas. And even if they don't land in your mind, don't let go of it. I promise you, if you just stick with it, something will pop up. Something will pop up.
I fully resonate with that, because it all comes down to your why. Like, when you have that as cheesy as it sounds, I know that you've read a lot of personal development, so they say it all the time, but it really is true. It keeps everything in perspective, because you come up with 100 problems, but you just need the one reason to just push through it. If that reason is big enough, then you'll be willing to lose sleep. You'll be willing to lose money. You'll be willing to know it doesn't matter, because there's countless stories of successful people who've gone through that. And it just, when you actually going for it yourself, you actually feel the pain of it, but then it's a weird contrast, because you feel the pain of no sleep, no food, no money, but then you feel the pleasure of knowing that the reason is there. Like, this is why I'm doing it, and I just want
to. That's exactly right. And to add to that point, I love this conversation, by the way. You're a great interviewer, or a great conversator, I should say.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. And I would say that, to take that a step further, it was like for me, there was no. I'm going to interview. It's still to this day, like, I am going to interview these people, period. There's no like, I hope it would be nice. It's just a matter of time. If the DM doesn't work, the email will. If the email, I'll find a relative. I'll find their significant other. I'll DM this person. I'll find their assistant. I'll show up to their door. I'll pay somebody to go meet up with them. I will send them fan mail. It doesn't matter. It will happen, period. And that's the one thought, that it has to happen. It has to happen. And that one reason, that one dialogue in my mind, which was born out of, by the way, think about this. In my mind, if I got a no from the interview, I got a no from my ex-girlfriend, and I got a no from the interview. I couldn't handle that. No way. There was no way somebody else was going to tell me no. So that, like you're saying, that was the one reason in my mind. There's no way. I'm going to be so careful. And that doesn't mean that I was like over gradient or like aggressive when I reached out for interviews. Most of the time, I'm very elegant, very light, very easy, very non-aggressive, but assertive. And that one reason that fueled me, countless nights and sleepless nights, and I was broke and I was lost. And I didn't have a team. To this day, I still don't know how to edit. I don't even know how to edit software. And somehow we have all these things happening simultaneously. It was that one reason that forced me to push through when logically, financially, I couldn't. So you're absolutely right about that. You have that one why, it can overcome anyhow.
Has your why changed since then now, though?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I to be honest, it's funny. A lot of people ask me, do you still think about her? I don't think about her. I don't even think she cares about the show. I don't think, there's any relevance there. But to me, it's about the lesson. The person, I wish them the best. There's no anything there. I wish her nothing but the best, but there's no conversation, thoughts, nothing at all. But my why has definitely changed. Now my why is to help people and to empower their story, right? And so the mission statement of the Passionate Few is to humanize greatness one story at a time, and to show people that through the power of story, that no matter where they are, somebody was once in a similar position. And by taking these steps a little bit differently, which you can too, you can end up in a totally different place. So that's my why now. It's much more about getting people to realize, who are in the situation that I once were, that they can be in a situation that I'm in now, or even better, by living out their great story. So that's really the ethos of the show.
Of course. And I think from the stories of all the people that you interviewed, they're in a very similar position as well, because most of them start from humble beginnings and then they work their way to the top, to the heights of success in their particular industry. So taking it back to where you were in your story. So you're sitting in Starbucks, you've written the list, in the state of mind you're in. What happens then? And how big is that list?
At that time, probably maybe I filled up the page, man. I was like, I'm just going to fill, till I'm out of ink, I'm going to fill up the page. So I wrote down all kinds of names. And that night I went to work on it. There was no lag time. It was really, I think I DM'd Tom Bilyeu that night. I didn't even have a podcast when I DM'd Tom Bilyeu. I told him I have a podcast. That didn't exist. Nothing exists. I just, figure it out, I had so much internal pressure to have to do it that I didn't have what I help a lot of podcasters. I have coaching clients who are podcasters, entrepreneurs who are trying to build their own brands. And one pattern I noticed is that they always feel like, well, I'm not ready, or I don't know how much is the equipment, or, how should I, right? They wait to know things. I didn't have any of that. Hey, how's Tuesday of next week? It was like Friday. That gave me 4 days to figure the equipment, the people, the money, the questions. That's pressure. Pressure is powerful. Kind of like in school, right? We all have 2 weeks to do the term paper, and we do it 2 days before or the night before, or some people like myself, the morning of. Pressure is powerful. So that night I went to work. I put pressure on myself. I DM'd the creator of Hot Cheetos. I DM'd Tom Bilyeu. I probably reached out to like 10 people that night. I woke up in the morning. I probably had 1 or 2 responses back, and did one interview and did a video, and and I just so on and so forth that way. So my first 3 steps, if you want to know, is I wrote down a list. Number 2, I started DMing them. Hey, my name is Omar. I have a show called The Passionate Few. It's about interviewing people on their amazing stories. Would love to interview. Super simple setup. What's the best email to send you further information so we can set this up on the schedule? Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And I just did that relentlessly. That first night, I got 1 or 2 back. Till this day, we probably have a 90% rejection rate. But the ones that have worked out, as you can tell, have worked out pretty nicely. There's been some huge names on the show. So that was really my tactical steps. Number 1, write the list down. Number 2, start DMing. And number 3, I figured it out. Just pressure myself with a deadline. Tell them Tuesday at this time, and I have to be there somehow. And putting myself under pressure that many times, I just figured it out. So that's how it started. That's how it was born.
That's awesome, man. So I think, so from what you said, so you got 1 or 2 responses back from that. You probably set up 1 or 2 interviews around that time. So what happens when you, what happens when you get rejected? Like, have you managed to get everyone that's rejected you so far, or have you only got a few of them? How does your tactic change for those who are trying to do something similar?
Yeah. So for anybody listening who's a podcaster, you're about to get the exclusive. So I'll give away 3 of my best secrets. I have many more, but I'll give away 3 of the hottest ones. If you have a podcast or whatever and you want to connect, or you're an entrepreneur and you want to get in touch with big names. So 3 things I would say. Number 1, whenever you send a message, if they don't respond or see it, I would, on Instagram, you can unsend the message. So I would copy paste the message, copy it, unsend it, and then resend it as if it's brand new if they haven't seen it. If they have seen it and they haven't responded, I would still do the same thing. The goal is to get any kind of feedback. And so what I tell people, which leads me to number 2, right? And I always tell people, always when you're DMing, ask a specific and easy question. So many people say, hey, I would love to interview for my podcast. Would you be open to that? What do you want them to say? Yes, absolutely. Please send me further details. It's not going to happen. These people are so busy. They have hundreds of messages. So for me, when I DM, I say something, and you'll love this. I'll say like, hey, I was looking to get on Grant's schedule next week on Tuesday or Wednesday, wondering who the best person's email would be to set this up. So I'm just asking for an email. I'm asking for one. They can read my DM and less than a sentence. They can give me everything that I want. But you don't want to put any of the work on them. 0 work on them. Do 99% of the work in that DM. Hey, it's an interview show. Here's a link to the show. 1 hour, super simple. And then I'll write in caps question on the bottom with a simple question. Oh, and this is number 2, like I said, always end that DM or that question or that email or that whatever with a question, a specific question. Not can I interview you, but who's the best person to talk to set this up? One presupposes that it happens and it moves the needle forward versus, hey, can I? You don't want to ask yes or no questions. Do not ask yes or no questions because the answer will always be no. So that's the second thing. The third thing, and you'll love this, whenever you're DMing high net worth individuals or people with a lot of followers or whatever it is, you have to keep in mind how everybody else is messaging them. Hey, I'm a big fan. Thank you so much. Anything that starts with, hey, it's game over. You're now, I mean, they appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, but you're definitely not going to stick out. And so what I tell people is that there's no way to guarantee communication. It's only a matter of increasing the odds. And so the only game we're playing when reaching out to people is maximizing the odds. We're not guaranteeing anything. We're just maximizing the odds. Number 3 is whenever you're DMing, this is a secret. So if you're listening, you're in for it. DM leading with emojis. So start your DM, right? So for example, scroll through your DMs. If you're listening to this or, watching this, go through your DMs on Instagram or check your emails, whatever, and scroll. And what catches your eye? Let me ask you, what catches your eye when you're scrolling in your DMs? It's the heart emojis, any kind of emojis. Same is true for influencers. And most people aren't doing that. Most people, they see a million, hey, Mark, hey, Tom, big fan, right? They see that. But if you start your DM with like an emoji, say you're a podcaster and you have like headphones or a microphone, and you say, Tom, quick question. You've now done 3 things. Number 1, you've caught their attention with emoji. Number 2, you've said their name, which is a person's most flattering thing to read or hear. And number 3, you're saying quick question. So in the small little space that they have to read the first 2 words of your DM, they're seeing the word quick. So emoji catches the interest. Tom says my name and quick. instantly. You see how that is very different than, hey, Mark, I'm a big fan. I would love to interview for my show where we interview people on their success, blah, 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 right? Quick question, da-da-da. And then you end it with, who's the best person to set this up? You've now maximized your odds of efficiency. You've caught their attention. You've asked a specific question, and they can, with their half brain thinking with a million people, Katie at grantcardone.com, boom. And now when I reach out to Katie, hey, Katie, Grant told me that you'd be the best person to set up an interview with. What's the best way to get on the schedule? Now, in Katie's mind, Omar must know Grant. Otherwise, how would he have got my email? And you can even send a screenshot of the DM of him sending the email. So you see, we're playing it very strategically. We just want to win steps. So I figured through trial and error, much trial and error, I figured out little nuances. And there's many more things to that, but that's one of the most effective strategies I've used. And I think it will serve you and your viewers tremendously if that's a focus of theirs.
Of course, no, and I think you definitely did provide a lot of value there, and I think that's something that only comes over time when you've practiced it and been in the game yourself. Because for me, being in the same similar game, there's no way that you can read that stuff. That's only something you learn by being in the deep end, trying to figure out how do I get their attention. And one of the things that I've done as well is similar to you, starting without hey or hi, just their name. And then at the beginning, putting 2 sentences about something that I like they've said, which isn't the most recent video or the most recent thing they've posted, because that just shows, I just clicked on the first thing. I'm going back, to the early post or something they've said way back. So it shows that I've been following for a while, and I've actually gone and taken the time to figure out what's this guy about, what's important to him, and where was he in his journey, at the time that I want to talk about. Not just the most recent ad that I've seen on YouTube, which is probably something everyone's going to talk about. So that catches their attention as well. So
that's brilliant, especially in emails. That works tremendously well. I always recommend people. So that's actually a really great value point.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of this comes from, the base foundation, I'm sure you can agree, is how to win friends and influence people, especially being in sales. Using the name, keeping the focus on the other person, all of that sort of stuff helps you build relationships. So, and I see that
simple, keeping it very simple, and a lot of times in messages like that, I'll often say quick question, simple setup, easy interview, because at a subconscious level, think about it from their perspective. They have a million things going on, and now this podcaster who I've never heard of, who they themselves are not a multimillionaire, right? To them, podcaster, cool. Like maybe if I have time one day. So how do you break through that? How do you catch their attention? And so you have to overcome their objections before they come up, right? So their objections in their mind are, how much time is this going to take? How many subscribers or viewers do you have? Which there's strategies if you have none of how to, strategically and honestly communicate that. But they have all these things in their head as to why they don't want to do it. And so you have to elegantly and concisely simplify what it is that you like from them and the benefit to them. And if you can do that in advance by saying things like super simple, super easy, just some quick questions. If you make it sound like something small and not a big deal, then it will be small and not a big deal. But I remember when I first started, and maybe you can relate to me, I started writing like paragraphs of email. Now I look back, I wrote an email to Tony Robbins' team for an interview. Oh my God, it was an essay. My ethos on why I started the show and the breakup and God bless my soul, but they didn't care about any of that. To them, they just want to know, what do you want? How big are your viewers? And is this a fit for Tony? Right. So you through trial and error, you learn that it's about how to communicate effectively, concisely, and to the point.
Exactly. No, you're right. And do you think some of that came across and helped you because you came from a sales background as well?
It helps. But, to be honest, and I don't mean to sound, cheesy or whatever, but I think that being effective at sales is being effective at communication. I've never met anybody that was a good salesperson that wasn't a good communicator. Now that doesn't mean they're not, aggressive, or it doesn't mean there's, everybody's the same or whatever, but I would say generally speaking, salespeople are great communicators within themselves and with others. And so if you can learn how to communicate, persuade, influence, sales is a byproduct of that. A team is a byproduct of that. An audience is a byproduct of that. Things are a byproduct of influence, being a persuasive person. So I think that is what helped me more than the sales element of it. But in sales gave me the persistence. I'll give you that for sure. Sales gave me the no matter what it takes to make this happen kind of thing going. Yeah.
Definitely. So it seems like I don't know if if you've read The Alchemist, or
Absolutely. I
you're
love the outcome.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, it's all of these things. If you look back, because as Steve Jobs says, hindsight's 2020. It seems like the foundation was being built for you every step of the way without you realizing. I don't know if that's
Life,
the
life happens for me, not to me.
yeah,
It
exactly.
goes back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. So,
Yeah.
where with everything you've got going on now, where do you see Passionate Few going next, or where do you see Omar going next?
Yeah, it's so interesting. A lot of people ask me that. What's the 5-year plan? What's the 10-year plan? To be honest with you, I love what we're doing so much. I just want to keep doing it and building it and building it and building it. And like I always tell people, I never did this to build a multi-million-dollar business. I never did it to build a personal brand, which I've inadvertently phenomenally done by accident, or by purpose, by passion. It's created it. So it was never really a well, thought out plan or anything. I just love to do it. So in terms of, what's next for the Passionate Few, more big interviews. We're just going to keep doing what we do best. Other than that, we have so many people reaching out, whether it's, sorry about the audio there, but whether it's helping people start their own podcast or book their dream guests or build their personal brand or build their network. We're coming out with a lot of courses to help people with various topics like that. I'm also personally going to be starting to share a lot more of the insights and strategies and my story to help people who can relate, and just helping more people with that. We have merch that we're launching actually next month. So we have different clothes, which is bamboo cotton made, and we have really nice materials, and it's in the spirit of Tom's. It's a 1-for-1 program. So for every piece of clothing we sell, whether it's a shirt, shoes, a hat, whatever it is, we give it to those in need with a nonprofit that I'm involved with, to help them. That way people not only can be a part of the Passionate Few community, but also literally help touch the world to empower everyone's story. So in terms of business and scaling the show, mostly in the digital space to reach as many people as possible. So that's the focus of the show. And just beyond that, just getting bigger and bigger names, and also smaller names too, just more and more stories. It just, to me, I think content is currency in this day and age. And I think that the more that you can build that for other people, the more you'll just attract your audience, attract your customers, attract your tribe. And with the advent of the internet, it's limitless, the opportunities to reach people and, have a great impact and income. So that's the focus in the digital space.
Definitely. No, I completely resonate with that, because it's very similar to the mission that I'm on, spreading the wisdom of every legend. And that means a legend is anyone who's found their life path. Everyone on that path who's walking their own path, blazing their own trail, it has a story to tell, because they've now gone through some sort of hardship in their life, or something that's forced them to have a realization that they need more, look for answers, and then go on their own journey to find those answers. It's the hero's journey, if you're familiar with that, and that's everyone who's trying to blaze their own trail. And so, no, that's why I was excited to get you on to tell your story, because it seems that you've come a long way over the last couple of years. So,
yeah, I'm very grateful, and often I was telling my buddy, I think I might be one of the weirdest people out there, because there's times where, I have never lost that sense of being the guy who's not winning. I so am acutely aware and remember what it's like to be broke and to check all my bank accounts and have no money, and it's in the red, and I'm embarrassed, and I'm in my 20s, and I have to ask my parents or siblings or I remember that so much. So now there's times where, I'll be driving somewhere, I'll be looking out the window, and I'm just like, whoa, I'm so grateful for the money in my bank account. I'm so grateful for the impact or the kind messages or the words from people, or the fact that, sometimes I'm in interviews and the camera's rolling, and I'll have out of my body experiences. I'm like, whoa, how am I here right now? Like, how's Grant Cardone talking to me? Like, when there's cameras, like, I don't know how to produce or video, right? Like, I don't have, like, I've never lost sense of that. By no means am I like, oh yeah, this is just what I do. No way. I'm blown away at it myself. I can't believe it. But to me, it's like, I so get people who are in that rough spot. And I promise you that it's just a few pivots away. I know it looks like a mountaintop of adjustments, and I got to do that. But I promise you, if you're really honest with yourself, there's just a few things that maybe you've even been thinking about, but it's just a few things. If you just follow through on, one will start to work, and then another, and pretty soon a year, 2 years will go by, and you'll be blown away at the momentum. So it's just little pivots make a big difference. So, I just wanted to say that. I know it's kind of a tangent, but I wanted to say that because I remember when I interviewed Tom, I'll never forget this. When I interviewed Tom Bilyeu in his house in Beverly Hills, after messaging him persistently about 13 times, and it's funny, he didn't respond at all. And the one time he responded after 13 or maybe 10 or 13 attempts, he was like, yeah, sure, Omar, sounds good. Here's my address. Here's my phone number. Text me when you guys are at the gate. My assistant will send you more info. It was so easy. It was such an easy thing. And I remember thinking like, whoa. And that opened so many doors. But see how it was a little pivot of sending the DM. I could have justified, like maybe some of you guys, the DM, I don't have a large following. Tom's he built $1 billion business. Who am I? I've never done an interview. It's the little pivot of like sending the DM anyways and being persistent about it. And boom, all the floodgates open. And I promise you, I've interviewed these people. They will tell you the same thing. It was never big things that they conquered. It was just little things over a sustained period of time. And I know I'm telling you all this, but it's because I want to share as much value as possible. And I think this is important. When I went to interview Tom at his house in Beverly Hills, I was totally broke. In that interview, if you go watch it, I was totally $0. I think I was negative in all my bank accounts. And here I am interviewing a guy who built $1 billion business and asking him about mindset to share it with others. And, so if I could do it, not only broke, but in debt, with no skill sets, emotions that were all over the place, I promise you that in your own life, in your own version, that you too can create your own legacy. So just wanted to share that.
No, I'm glad you did. It's a powerful story. Now, let me just ask you one thing before we wrap
Absolutely.
up with the final few questions. From your situation at that point, because it seems like obviously that was a big guess you had at the time, but from what you're saying, you were in the red personally. When did you first start seeing the money coming in and feeling like, you know what, this is actually gaining traction and I'm actually starting to make some money from this?
Probably when we started making YouTube revenue. I mean, that was like when I first got happy. That's not when I first started seeing great money. But that's when I first started seeing any money, because I was so in the red, and I literally went through 12 different videographers and editors, literally. And so I think one of our first checks, like 6 months in, was like maybe $400 or $500 or $600 or something. And I remember like, whoa, like something, there was traction or something. Of course, I owed that 600 long ago, so I didn't, it's not like I made any money, but the fact that I started to see like, oh, you can pop up with that. And then we started doing affiliate programs. Affiliate is where, like, say you interview somebody and they have a course and somebody buys the course as a result, then you get a commission on that affiliate link. Then I started making, I remember there was a week where it was like a week and I made like almost like $6,000 in a week passively, not doing anything. Except just sharing a link and running a traffic to it. And I'm being very honest here, but I made like about a little, like 5,500, almost 6,000 in a week. And I thought, whoa, like, I love this online thing, right? Like that took me forever to make, like stressing out, like where was all this easy money when I was broke and lost, So I think it was little wins, it goes back to the little things, and then, YouTube revenue started, getting to several thousand. And still YouTube revenue is not at like a crazy amount, but it's several thousand a month that, it helped things it helped build the momentum for me to fund the team to get things going in the beginning. But that's when I started seeing things. And then we had from that, we started getting a different clients saying, hey, we love the videos you're doing and inspiring content. Could you make content for us? So I said, yeah, absolutely. And now I'm not just a content creator, but I'm a premium content creator. So, and I'm getting very honest with you here. Whereas other people were charging $500 or $1,000 or $1,500, we can charge $2,500 and $3,500 and $4,500 for content. And when you have multiple clients doing that, numbers start to add up rather quickly, especially when you have a team. And so it was so gradual but it was like consistent. So there was never a moment where it was like, whoa. There was a lot of little moments that were like, wow, wonder what else I could do. Wow, wonder what else I could do. And then, like, you know, these little wins just started to add up to now, you know, we have income things all over the place, you know, it's not just one or two. And so, you know, in the digital space, there's so many things you can do, not just from ad revenue, but just leveraging your traffic to send them, you know, to affiliates or to other programs and getting commissions on that, or starting a coaching consulting program, which I've also done. I've started getting so many people saying, hey, how are you doing these interviews? And I realized that I could serve demographics all over, and at high ticket price points, I could serve people at an even higher level. And so, you know, it by doing what I love, somehow just money and opportunity started to sort of come to me. And now we have coaching programs where I help clients, 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs mostly, whether they want to start their own coaching or consulting programs, or they want to start their own high traffic, profitable interview show or book big guests and do it in person. We help them do that. So yeah, it was I don't even want to say an accident, but it just goes back to the ethos of this episode, I guess, is life happens for me, not to me, you know, and by turning my pain into power, somehow profits showed up.
Yeah. No,
so yeah.
That's amazing. And it all happened because you're willing to take the risk that night to reach out to people and just keep at it, basically, you know? It's just building momentum.
Yeah, there are, I will tell you, this phone, the skills that I have developed to create on this phone, I can't even believe sometimes, man. And I say that not to impress people. I'm the least egotistical person I know, but I say it to impress upon people, like, what's possible if you just try, just be imperfect. Even if your DM looks stupid, even if your Instagram sucks, even if you have no self-confidence, just roll the dice. You never know. And that one little win will stack to another and another and another and another. But don't look at the mountain. Just look at the next step. And I promise you, if you just take one step every day, make it a game with yourself. Like, what's a micro action I can take it to the next level? And let me share with you this one thing. I know you have other questions, but this interview got me inspired to share things I've never shared before. This is one of the most, what I'm about to share with you, and perhaps we can cut this up into a clip for Instagram. But what I'm about to share with you is one of the most powerful things that I found for my business and productivity. I myself don't have a large attention span, unless it's an interview, right? But I myself, I'm honest with myself. If I sit there and work for 2 hours, I probably actually worked maybe 23 minutes, really like deep work. And I think most people would agree if they're being honest. So what I found is, what I do is I call productivity bursts. So what I'll do is I'll set like a timer, right? Like, say you have a to-do list, right? All these things you have to do, right? I'll set a timer sometimes for like a ridiculous amount of time, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I'll have all these things. And believe it or not, by pressuring myself of having to do it in a short time, it just forces you to not go to the text or check the email or go to the Instagram. It just pressures you into, oh no, the clock's going to beep. Let me just do it. To the point where even my team now, say we want to interview somebody, I don't but between the time a thought pops in my mind to interview somebody versus when we send the email, reach out to the assistant or DM, usually is no more than 10, 15 minutes. As soon as I get the thought, instantly, let me just do it now. Imperfect action now. Grant Cardone started because I was talking with buddies, and I was like, oh, that would be cool to interview Grant. And right in that moment, boom, went on Google, Grant Cardone headquarters phone number. No clue what I'm going to say, no clue how to do it. Just press dial, call the number. While it's ringing, I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to say? How am I going to talk to the assistant? How am I going to da-da-da-da? And even though I ended up getting Grant through a different medium in person, that just planted the seed. And so I've done that habitually. Jim Carrey. Oh, that would be cool. Google search. Who's Jim Carrey's manager, agent? What company do they work for? Let me see if her name is on Instagram. Oh, she doesn't have that many followers. Oh, she posted yesterday. Oh, Jim Carrey's agent doesn't have that many followers. Oh, okay. Let me DM it, right? It's like, if you burst of intensity things as opposed to letting time pass, I promise you can get so much done. So yeah, I think that will serve your audience tremendously well. That's literally, if I can give one productivity hack, it would be that. Pressure yourself to do things way quicker than you need to. You'll always get it done in as much time as you give yourself. And I think too many people give themselves too much time.
Yeah, I love what you said there at the end. You do it in the amount of time you give yourself, and that's your way of your thinking is exactly the same as mine. And I lose attention really quickly, so my mind's like everywhere, thinking a million thoughts
Right.
at once. And so I have to give myself a short period of time to make sure I get those one or two tasks done, and then I can move on. Otherwise, it's like 30 minutes have gone by, and I just did good work, for about 10 minutes. And then the other
Yeah.
30 was just thinking about something else. And you don't even realize it. You just end up going in this weird flow where you're just like, okay, maybe I should think about this, or let me just make a note of this. And then you just end up doing that. And it's just like,
Right.
hang on, I was doing this task a minute ago.
Exactly. There's two lines that come to mind. Number one is fortune is in the follow through, right? Fortune is in the follow through. And the second is, and I just came up with this the other day, that I only get paid for finish lines. I only get paid for finish lines. I don't get paid. And I'm sure me and you have had it. I'm sure somebody listening to this, interview might have had it in their own life, where you could feel like you had such a productive day because you had all these thoughts. But if you objectively are looking at it from a bird's eye view, you'll see that you really didn't get that much done, right? Maybe in your mind, you have all these things inspired, stimulated. And so I think of it that way. How many finish lines can I get to today? Finish lines. I don't have to get a yes for the interview. I just have to send it, right? And the more I can define finish line, the more finish lines you hit, the more money you'll make, the more impact you'll have, the more people you'll reach, the more you'll grow your social media following, the more you yourself will become a more confident, fulfilled person. So I would encourage you to not think in terms of ideas as much as you think in terms of finish lines, because finish lines are what you get paid for. It's what people tune in for. If I did everything for an interview, if I DM'd the person, interviewed him, showed up, got the camera, got the audio, but we didn't upload it, all that didn't matter. The upload is the finish line. So how many finish lines can you get to? That determines more often than not your success in whatever it is that you want to master.
Yeah, awesome, man. That's a really good piece of advice for people that are listening. So one of the questions just before we wrap up in the final few questions is,
Take your time. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. No, me too. So earlier on, you were talking about, so you wrote the list out. Obviously, you had those guests come on. When did the transition happen from you seeing that YouTube money to leaving Tesla? What did that part look like?
Oh, I left Tesla when I was broke. Yeah, I'm not one of those people that, let me, and I respect it. Don't get me wrong. I respect it. I think that's the wise thing to do. In retrospect, I probably still wouldn't have done it though. I'm a very much an all or nothing type of person. And it killed me, man, because here I was all day long. I remember hope Tesla doesn't hear this, but I remember I would be in Tesla and I would literally be texting out DMs for interview requests at work. My lunch break, I was writing emails. Hey, hot Cheeto guy. Hey, this person, that person. To me, it was, and still is, there's just no way it's not going to happen. There's no way. It is impossible. If I'm alive, there's no way that I will not tell the stories of these people. It is impossible. It's not a preference. It's not a hope. It's not a wish. It's what I like to call an inevitable reality. It is an inevitable reality to me. And so I reverse engineer it, and from there it has to happen. And because I commit first, the how shows up later. But yeah, so I just committed and I dropped Tesla. But I will say this. I have to give credit to one of my coach. Not only do I coach clients, but I have coaching clients. And even when I was broke, the last money I had, I invested it in coaches to help me. And I invested in my life coach at the time. His name is Dave Thorpe. And Dave gave me one of the most profound pieces of advice I've probably ever gotten to this day. I wanted to quit Tesla for a long time. I was doing it to survive while I did the show. And I wanted to quit that day. Like there was a day where I was like, I've had it. This is it. Like I'm just going to make up some BS thing and be out, even though I was broke. And I remember I was talking to Dave the whole way to work, telling him I want to quit. He's my coach. And he's like, Omar, like I get it. You're not fulfilled. You're not passionate about this. You know what you want to do, but you don't know how you're going to really make money doing it, right? So like you have to be honest with yourself. It's like you can delude yourself all you want, but the bill's going to show up no matter what, and you have to pay it. And so the advice that Dave gave me was, you're building all these skills with a passionate few. Why don't you find somebody from Tesla, like a customer of Tesla, to be like a video client of yours for video projects. I mean, think about the people that walk in the door at Tesla. They're high income individuals. You know, you're not selling to, most of the time, you're not selling to employees. You're selling to owners, high net worth individuals, people who care about their brand or their business, right? To some level. And he said, why don't you try, instead of making one sale with every customer, why don't you try making 2 sales with every customer for the next week or 2? And I shit you not, my man, the next day, because I didn't quit, right? I said, okay, fine, I'll give it more time. Then I shit you not. The next day, guy walks in. Not only do I end up selling him a car, but we strike up a conversation about the passionate few. This guy ends up being my first video production client on a $4,500 deal, just like that.
Wow.
And that ends up basically being the budget to fund the first few episodes of The Passionate Few. And so, you know, that the coach, just that one extra day, like imagine if that never happened, maybe I wouldn't be here. Maybe I would still be at Tesla, or maybe I would still be bouncing around, or maybe I wouldn't have had the money. And so that one extra day, staying beyond the day I wanted to, I ended up quitting like a week later, but that one extra day, that one push by that coach instantly got the ball rolling on all these things and gave me more money than I ever had at once at that time to do what it is I wanted to do. And he basically ended up funding the first few episodes of Passionate Few. And you know, so yeah, I highly, you know, I was highly risky. I didn't wait for the perfect time, but thank God I had a mentor in my corner to just force me to stay just a little bit longer. And the lesson to you guys listening might be like, maybe you have a job you want to quit or something you want to leave, but just think about, like, okay, if you want to quit or whatever, like that's up to you. If you want to stay till you get the money on your passion to balance out, I love that, respect that too. You know, be at integrity with what you feel is right. But I would also encourage you to maybe see, what is the blessing, what is the opportunity in the situation you're in. Like maybe you're only making 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever bucks an hour, or maybe better than that. But maybe you can strike up a conversation with a manager. Maybe your coworker's dad owns this really successful business in something that you're going into, right? Like try to be resourceful about what you can use and squeeze that out of it, because that's all around you. You know, when I see people, I don't just see people with shirts and shoes and clothes and hats. I see opportunity. That guy might know Grant Cardone. That guy might know Ed. That guy might need a video, right? Like opportunities. And when you see the world like that, you know, the expression, your network is your net worth. And totally true. Totally true. So I hope that helps your audience. If, you know, if they're struggling or trying to make that decision or trying to figure out how to leverage whatever opportunity they're in, that will help maximize your resources wherever you're at to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's just about looking at the situation from a different perspective, isn't it? Rather than just looking at it through the same eyes, look at it from a different angle. Like what you're looking at a bird's eye view, you can see the whole picture. Then you think, actually, wow, I've got all these things that I'm actually learning along the way. So maybe this isn't as bad as I thought, because I can still use this resource and that resource and you know, put more effort into this, which I've been lacking. So it's just about reevaluating and taking the time to reflect on where you really are and what you can do. I always like to say one thing I've heard, I can't remember who I heard say this, but it's always stuck with me. Do what you can with what you have, with where you are and what you have. So at the time, you know, so that's all you can do. It's just making the most.
That's all you can do. Exactly. And it goes back to, I know the theme keeps coming up, that life happens for me, not to me. Maybe, and maybe this is crazy, but just maybe you're in this situation, in this job, in this pickle, and this thing, because you need to learn a lesson here. Just maybe. And roll with me. Maybe just, if you think that's crazy and you think, no way, Omar, you're crazy. Maybe that worked for you, but not for me. Maybe, just maybe there's a lesson here that you were intended to learn here. Maybe you were intended to go through this pain. Maybe you were intended to work at a shitty job. Maybe you were intended to meet this person or get rifled up in a certain way, or you intend, like maybe the universe, you know, coincidence. Maybe you being there coincides with exactly where you want to go, but you just need to squeeze this one last lesson to get to where you want to go. And if you think about it, when I interview people, and when you interview people, and for anybody listening, when they listen to other interviews, you've seen it. You've seen stories where the guy goes, yeah, well, the only reason I knew how to start the company was because when I was a kid, I worked at this thing, right? There's always a dot to connect. And so see, like, ask yourself, don't think this dot is out of line. I promise you it's not. I promise you it's not. There's There's a dot in your situation, even if you freaking hate it, even if it's parents that are abusive, even if it's a shitty relationship, I don't care what it is. Even that thing where you're thinking, well, what about this, Omar? Yeah, that thing too, for the listener. Like that thing too, there's a way to use that dot to connect it to where you want to go. And your ability to not let go of that, like not let go of that thought until you figure it out, even though it might take a day, a week, a month, don't let go of the question. Don't let it pass because you're going to hear this and then go eat a burrito. Like hold on to that. Like don't let it go. What is the blessing here? What is the lesson here? How can I use this? What is it? And even if it's a little thing, I promise you there's a blessing in it. So don't underestimate the situation you're in. It's the only dot you have to connect it to the next one.
Exactly. And I always take the time to reflect and look back. It's weird you say that because I've recently taken the time to look back, and I've got notes on my phone where I've written my life experiences, and I've written all the things that have led me to where I am today. All the things I'm interested today, what actually happened unconsciously before to show my interest was already there. So for example,
great point.
Something as simple as reading. Like I love reading personal development books, autobiographies, whatever, just learning from other legends. But that interest of reading was always there. I picked the subjects I did most well at was English literature, history, economics. I studied law. It's all reading, and more reading. And so, and as a kid, I used to buy Simpsons comics all the time. I spent every last penny I had was Simpsons comics. So I love that. It wasn't a personal development book, but the love for reading was always there. And then the rest of it goes on and on and on. The other funny thing, which I've shared with my audience before, and I'll share with you, is I enjoy speaking, as you can tell, hence why I'm in sales as well, in recruitment.
Yeah, you're a great speaker.
Thank you. And hence why I do interviews, and I'm slowly going to Toastmasters to hone that skill further. So one thing that the teachers used to always tell my parents was that he talks too much. And what I realized was taking the time to reflect now, when I look back, all the traits that I feel are my strengths now were always there. It was just for me to find them and connect the dots along the way as I'm going, because hindsight's always 20/20. You're never going to be able to see into the future. You can see what you want to create, but you'll never understand it until you've done it, you've experienced, and you've taken the time to reflect. And I read a lot of philosophy, and so I one of the things, I think it's Seneca that says an unexamined life is not worth living. So you take away your best gems if you take the time to see how far you've come and the lessons that you glean from them, because everyone has a story.
Absolutely.
But you can only share that message if you can tell people that the experiences you've had, what differentiates your experiences from someone else's is because you've got a certain set of lessons you can go and teach from those experiences. That's what makes your life, or gives your life meaning. So, yeah, that's why I like everything you've said about connecting the dots.
Yeah, it's powerful because everybody has dots to connect, whether you're homeless or even people at the highest levels. And it's interesting. One of the most powerful or profound lessons I've learned from interviewing these people is, much like yourself, you might have started with one intention and then realized something completely different. When I started interviewing these people, I thought I was looking for the keys to success. What time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? I thought that's what I was looking for. And that's what a lot of people look for. And no disrespect to them, a lot of people love that space. For me, I realized that everybody was different. So I realized, the pattern wasn't in the behaviors. The pattern was in the mindset, because it manifests differently for everybody, right? The mindset of resilience or persistence manifests differently, but it still originates in certain things, right? Certain premises. And so as I learned that, I began to realize that it's like there are patterns of thinking, and those patterns of thinking or create the patterns of action, which then lead to results. So bottom line is, everybody has thoughts to connect at every level. Even the people that mirror you look at and think, oh man, they have it all together. Believe me, they don't. I'm sure Grant Cardone wakes up sometime and goes, oh shit, I hope nobody finds out about this. I'm like, oh my God, right? Ed Mylett, Tom Bilyeu, not because they're dishonest people, no, but because they're human beings, right? We're all imperfect human beings, learning and growing and doing. And although social media places them in this fixed position of awesomeness, which we all respect and strive to get to ourselves for the most part, there are certain elements that they haven't mastered that I'm sure somebody broke might be a lot better than them at, right? There might be somebody completely broke looking up to Grant Cardone, but Grant Cardone can't write like that person. Grant Cardone might not be able to write like you or talk like you or speak like you, or influence like you, or persuade like you, or make others laugh like you, right? There are skill sets that we all have. And so I look at those skill sets as dots. And so just think, what are the dots in my repertoire, right? Maybe money's not one right now. That's okay. It's only one dot. What are the dots you do have, and how can we start strategically placing them in a direction we want to go? And so once I started looking at dots that way, I was like, man, I have so many things I can use. And much like yourself, you know, I spent a lot of time thinking about what's my passion, what's my purpose, what's my direction, what do I do? You know, oh man, what about this? What about that? I don't know. How am I going to make money, right? And at the end of the day, go figure, like my whole life, I've been asking people questions. I'm fascinated. Since I was a kid, I would ask my grandpa, hey, grandpa, what's your best advice to your 13-year-old self? You know, or waiters in restaurants, you know, hey, did you have any interesting customers? Or if you watch my Instagram stories, here's my plug. You can follow me on Instagram at Omar_the_rockstar. Omar_the_rockstar on Instagram. But if you watch my Instagram stories, when I'm with Uber drivers, I'm asking them, how long have you been Uber driving? How do you like it? What's your intention? What are your goals? And I'm fascinated by what's going on in people's minds that nobody taps into. And I know this because when I was a kid, I wish somebody tapped into mine. And like I told you, I was a loner. I was alone a lot. And so when I would have a chance to connect with people, I didn't care about the baseball game or the soccer game or the football match or the this or that. Even in my, as 13, 14, I was like, hey, what are your goals? What are your dreams? You know? And so go figure, I would go leverage that skill, which you would never, you couldn't aim. How could I know at that time that I was to create an interview show and become a digital marketer and create video content, right? Like that wasn't even remotely in my mind. I just love to ask questions, and I connected that down. I thought, well, I like asking questions. Who would I like to ask questions to? Oh, I would like to ask it to these people. Oh, okay, let me try that. And then I did that and it worked. And then people started watching, and then that started generating revenue. And then the revenue started generating opportunity. Right? And so it's just like the dots somehow connected because I had the courage to lay down the first dot or two of let me ask questions on camera to these people. So I agree with you tremendously. I just wanted to give a specific example so people might be able to apply it in their own life practically.
I love that. Yeah, because it shows that, you know, most people that think that they have sort of beginnings where they feel like there's not really much going on, or, you know, I am alone
Right.
and I don't really have much. I'm not really the same as the popular kids. Everyone has these traits that can be connected up. It just takes a bit of thinking and reflection to think, maybe if I use that to my advantage, what can I do? And that's where the magic starts to show up, you know. And then
Absolutely.
the other thing as well that I've posted, because I post weekly on IGTV, and I want to share this just to address to the listeners again, and, you know, to share with you to see what you think is one way. If you're feeling lost, or you're feeling like, you know, what's my passion, my purpose, you know, that thought process that you're talking about, direction, feedback. Listen to the feedback others are giving you. Like one specific example I'll give you now is you earlier on in this conversation, you said, oh, you're great at conversation. Now, I'm not trying to impress people. I've got nothing to show off about. Or I'm just going to say the facts that other people have said the same thing. Now, when I've thought about those questions, I'm like, right, what are other people saying about me? Because that tells me a lot about what I'm good at, because they are giving me a good,
honest, unsolicited feedback, or unfiltered
exactly.
feedback.
Yeah, they're giving me compliments or comments on what my personality is like objectively. So that must, if I connect that enough times and they're saying a similar sort of thing, that must mean something. You know, that's just another thing
Right.
up along my journey. So yeah, I mean, so just
Right.
to wrap this up, then the last few questions that I like to ask everyone. So the first is, with everything that you've gone through in your journey now, is there anything different that you tell the 18-year-old Omar?
Oh, I love this, man. I'm always on the other side of the fence with these types of questions. So I love being on this side of the fence. 18-year-old self. 18-year-old self, right? I would say something different to the 20-year-old self or the 22-year-old self or the me when I got broken up with. But at 18, I would definitely say that the number one priority, I want to say focus on your future and stuff like that. And to some degree, I would say that. But most importantly, be relentless about who you call a friend. Be relentless about be picky with your friends. And it's okay to be picky. I would forgive myself for being picky. I wouldn't think I'm being mean. I wouldn't, I would be, because there was a lot of times where I spent time with people that got me into drinking and smoking weed and going to parties and girls. And in retrospect, no value has come from that. Zero. I'm not with any of those women. I'm not, smoking weed and drinking didn't make me a better person then. The amount of time and energy and effort and focus, where are we going? What are we going to get? What drinks are we going to get? What club? Allocating what resources I did have to that. Complete waste of time. And yeah, I can be, philosophical and say, well, I learned lessons and got wisdom. Sure, I can get wisdom meditating in complete silence. The question was, did I want to get wisdom through those experiences? And at that time, I don't think I spent my time wisely at all. I spent a lot of time wasted. So my best advice to my 18-year-old self, I'm a skateboarder at heart. I started skateboarding. That's what got me passionate and juiced up in life when I was 12 years old. I would tell myself, skate more, hang out with losers less, and go seek out positive, healthy associations. Go find people who are good people, good, ethical people, and surround yourself with those people and make that a priority, because they literally shape your life. Literally, not metaphorically, not kind of, not sort of, definitively. Who you surround yourself with shapes your reality, period. And I think if I had somebody in my ear communicating that elegantly, I would have followed through, because I wasted a lot of time there. And I think a lot of people, if they're honest, if you either learn to hang out with positive people by hanging out with positive people and yielding a positive result, or by hanging out with negative people and yielding a negative result and going, I'm not going to do that again. So I would really, that would be my best advice, is who you surround yourself with is who you become, and don't take that lightly. Literally don't take that lightly. That's what I would say to my 18-year-old self.
I love that, because that's a really influential age as well, because that's when you're trying to form your identity and you're susceptible to all of these sort of things, So I love that.
Right.
So
and your perception of normality gets adjusted then, right? If I had, for example, my perception when I was probably 20, 21, 22, I thought 100,000 a year income, personal income, was phenomenal. And now that's what months should look like, or a few weeks should look like income wise. And so, who you surround yourself with shapes your reality, shapes your perception of normal. And if your perception of normal is being shaped by the guy at the bar, or these girls, or that thing, or chasing empty things, then guess what? You're going to produce a life of having more of those empty things. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, for sure. No, and the second question is, if there's anything that you could write now in a piece of paper that goes into a time capsule for generations from now to read, they dig it up and they read that sentence or that paragraph from Omar, what would you like it to say?
Anytime you're stuck, simplify. If you're stuck on how to make money, simplify. If you're stuck on the relationship, simplify. If you're stuck on any problem or challenge or goal, or maybe things are going well and it's moving too fast, I know I found myself there, slow down and simplify. Understand, reflect. Wisdom comes from reflection. Experience doesn't give you wisdom. Reflection gives you wisdom. And too many people experience so many things but never stop to synthesize and internalize. So I would say that first and foremost. Secondly, who you surround yourself with is who you become. I would say that is so important. I know I mentioned that in the last answer. And the last thing I would say that is the most important, decide what your priorities are and live them. So often, whether it's family, loved ones, whatever it is, we can kind of neglect them, right? Especially when we're younger and we have ambitions and we're trying to climb. You prioritize maybe business more than family or whatever it is, and tell yourself, well, later I'll worry about that. But I found that has been really powerful, because in the myriad of all these things going on, including social media, you have so much action happening so fast. You could be killing it on social media, but also killing your relationship, or your relationship with your kids, significant other, or your family. So I would say that's number 3, is decide what your priorities are. Maybe God is a priority. Maybe your spirituality is a priority. Decide what your priorities are and live them, because you don't get the time back. Your parents aren't going to get any younger. For most of us, unfortunately, they're not going to get any healthier. And so, prioritize what really matters, because at the end of your life, it's not how many followers you had or how many people listen to your podcast. It's about, did you live a fulfilling life that was worth living? I mean, you could make 50 grand a year, love your family, love your wife, love your kids, and live a better life than somebody who made $100 million and neglected their loved ones or the people closest to them. So in closing, I would say three things. I know it's a long paragraph, but number one, anytime you're stuck, simplify, slow down, and understand yourself. What's honestly going on? The answers are within you. Number two, who you surround yourself with is who you become. And number three, decide your priorities and live them.
Yeah, for sure. I resonate with that completely because especially the last bit you were saying about priorities, because values that you have shape the direction of where you're going. So I always feel like it's important to reevaluate what your values are, and because every decision comes from that in your life, you know, the friends, the family, the time that you spend doing certain activities, how you spend your money, all of that sort of stuff. So that leads me into the last question, which is you're at the end of your life now. You're looking back, reflecting on your final day. What's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
Yes. Wow, I love that question. I would love the legacy I leave behind to be that I left a world of stories for people to live theirs. And I know it sounds crazy, but my whole life I've loved, much like yourself, autobiographies, documentaries. Till this day, whether I'm going on a date or I'm with friends or whatever, I have the hardest time ever if the movie is not based on a true story. My prereqs to watch anything, is this based on a true story? Is it inspiring, or is this a documentary? If it is not either of those, maybe I'll do a comedy or a romantic comedy, maybe a funny animated film, maybe. But when there's a story and I leave, I want to leave a movie feeling inspired, right? I don't want to feel like I just sat down, ate popcorn, and now what's next? I want it to linger. Oh man, I want to be that guy in my own way. And so I guess if I was to look back at the legacy of Omar and the Passionate Few, I'd want to leave a world of story, because there's people today inspired by stories from the 1700s, the 1600s, thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, a story yesterday. Stories transcend time, and they help people in every walk of life think, man, if that person could do it, then I could too. So I want my legacy to be that I left a world of stories for people from down to up, and that if they could do it, you could do it too.
Awesome, man. That's amazing, and you're definitely on your way to doing that with the work that you're doing. You're becoming a passionate few yourself. So, thank you so much for taking the time to share your wisdom.
Absolutely, and the last thing I will say, because you said the passionate few, you know, when I started the show, I did it by design. I kind of had, in the beginning, I was like, I never cared about viewers or anything. I did it for the passionate few, by the passionate few. So if we only had 100 listeners on every episode, I would still be as ecstatic as I am now with hundreds of thousands. That few, it was really the passionate few. Implicit in it was that most people won't listen to this podcast. Most people won't live their best life. Most people won't read an epic story, but a few will. And so I want to encourage you, if you feel like something in this interview or something in the podcast, the Know Your Legacy podcast, touches you, reach out. Let him know that he does a phenomenal job with interviews. Let him know that you touched his life with a story, because believe it or not, these are the things that shape our reality alone, right? Stories are technology. They allow us to go, oh, they use this tool of mindset, I can use that tool too. And so just remember that although I started the show, and it's called The Passionate Few, it's for the passionate few, but it can apply to anybody. And so if you can use these stories, I promise you'll be in the minority, but I promise you would have lived a life worth living. So I just wanted to add that in closing.
Exactly. No, I love that message so much, and that's why I wanted to end on that note. And just leading from that, where can people find you if they want to follow you, whether it's your personal journey or the podcast?
Yes, you guys can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. At YouTube, you can search The Passionate Few, The Passionate, and then Few, F-E-W, The Passionate Few on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at Omar_the Rockstar. One word, the Rockstar, OMAR_ the Rockstar. So Omar the Rockstar on Instagram, and on Facebook, you can find me at just my name. Shoot me a message. Let me know if you enjoyed this interview, and I'm happy to help you guys out. And my name is spelled OMAR. Last name is Elattar. Again, that's Elattar. ELATTAR, and you guys can find me on Facebook there. So thank you so much, and I love being on the podcast. Honestly, my brother, I do a lot of these, and was really especially touched by this one. So thank you for taking the time to share my story and impact a lot of people. You're doing amazing work, my man.
No, thank you so much. That means a lot, and I appreciate your time and effort. Honestly, like that when I now think of someone taking their time to be with me, it's just like that means more than money, you know. So because you're literally spending a currency that you can't get back, and so I'm so glad that you've taken the time to share your wisdom, because I know it's going to help a lot of people. So thank you so much. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Appreciate you, brother. I'm deeply touched, and we're kindred spirits on the same path. The world needs people like us, and we need people like them to live their best life as well. So thank you so much, and I'm honored to be a part of you helping people live their best legacy.